This is Chapter 6, Part 1 of the UDOITs. The first part of the UDOIT section is writing a loop that validates the data entries. Now, I have already pulled the code up on the screen, and we're just going to explain it like we've done in previous chapters. You will notice that this is the program that you created in Chapter 5, the Choose Manager, with some verification added to it. Just to kind of walk through very quickly what we've got here. In the very first part of our code, we do have to import in the scanner object because we are going to be receiving information from our user. We are going to go in and then create variables and constants, which we have done previously, so this shouldn't be a problem at this particular point. The next section of code is just creating your scanner. So now every time I want to receive input from the keyboard, I just refer to it simply as input. Remember, whenever you prompt your user, you want to be very specific. What exactly are you looking for? So we've got the next couple of sentences there of code, just printing out some information. Please tell me what type of event you want scheduled. Give me a 1 for private or a 2 for corporate. But you will notice that they're using the words private code and corporate code as opposed to 1 and 2 because those are the constants that we declared. Whatever information is entered in on the keyboard will then be stored in event type. Now this is where the program differs from the program that you created in Chapter 5. This next section here, the highlighted section, is your verification. Okay, so what we're doing is just creating a loop. And you have to either enter in a number 1 or a number 2. If you enter in anything besides a 1 or 2, you've entered in an invalid selection. So it will process back through the loop and continue to ask you until you've entered in a 1 or a 2. The line of code that starts your loop simply states, while event type is not private code and event type is not corporate code. Okay, so as long as it's not a 1 or a 2. If it's a 1 or 2, you're not even going to deal with this loop. You're only going to deal with this loop if it is not a 1 or if it's not a 2, okay? Or in this particular case, NaN. All right. If you have wound up inside this loop, you are going to see the following output. You made an invalid selection. You entered in, and you'll notice here it says event type. This event type is the same as this event type. So it's exactly the same thing you entered on the keyboard. It's just feeding it back to you. Then it says, please enter in either a 1 for private or 2 for corporate. And then it gives you the opportunity to enter something in. It's going to store whatever it is you enter in event type. It's going to come back up here to this line of code and says, all right, while event type is not 1 and event type is not 2, so if you entered in a 1 or 2, it's going to fall through. If not, you just continue to process this loop. Now let's say, for the sake of saying it, that you have entered in a 1 or a 2. All right, this time it's not going to fall back through the loop. It's actually going to bypass the loop and deal with the decision here. So if event type is equal to 1, then your manager is going to be Dustin. If it's not 1, then it has to be 2. So then it's going to be Carmen. Then you're just going to have a little bit of output that says, okay, you've entered in whatever event type, either a 1 or a 2, and the manager for this event will be whoever the manager will be, either Carmen or Dustin. So I'm going to go ahead and compile the code. I do get a clean compile. Next, I'm going to execute the code, and you will notice it basically tells me what I've asked it to. What type of event are you scheduling? Enter in a 1 for private or a 2 for corporate. I'm going to enter in a 1 for private. So I'm processing this part of the code. I entered in a 1, so I'm going to totally bypass the loop. So I go through the decision structure, then I print out the output. All right, I'm going to run the program again. I'm going to enter in 2. Again, you will notice that we come through, we do all the declarations, we bypass the loop. We do, however, have to interface with the decision, then we get the output. I'm going to run it one more time. I'm going to enter in the number 3 because the only choices we have here are 1 or 2, correct? All right, so since we've entered in a 3, I come through, I do the declaration, gathering the information, but event type is not a 1 and event type is not a 2, so I have to process the loop. So you will notice down here it comes up and it says, okay, give me whatever type of event you're scheduling. I entered in a 3. So you've made an invalid selection. You entered in a 3. Please enter in 1 for private or 2 for corporate. And that's what I get. And you will notice that it goes back to the loop and it will stay there until I enter in a valid choice. All right, I've entered in a 4, a 5, and until I enter in a 1 or a 2, it will remain inside of that loop. That is the end of part 1 for chapter 6.